You talk about changing culture and organization, obviously, for 1 hour now. I have a question. To be able to change something, particularly culture and organization, you need a lot of activation energy, right? We agree on that. Where do you think that energy will come from?
I typically think it comes from business objectives. Business objectives are incredible motivators.
Yeah, but that exists for 20 years. We're always working on business objectives. So something else should be new. So let me give you a comment, not so much. Business objectives, we work on business objectives for every day, every year for the past 20 years. So it's not a new energy. So the activation energy usually should come from the success of a technology that really brings a lot of value. The majority of these technologies, 90% of these technologies, if you look at the Gartner hype curve and so on, are on the top of the curve. That means a lot of promises, but a lot of people didn't see the value. Mm-hmm. Activation energy will never come from the business objectives. This energy exists at every company. Something else should give energy. So right now, the technologies are in the top of the hype curve. A few years ago, we talked about augmenting reality. We're talking so much about augmenting reality. We didn't see that delivering the benefits promised for 5 years, except the Universal Studios got a lot of value of that. But the operating companies did not see a lot of value. A lot of the other things that we don't see a lot of successes and a lot of proof of concepts, activities we do in the companies, we don't see a lot of scalability, a lot of success, and so on. So my comment is we need to find that energy to change things.
Yeah, I think I understand what you're.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I know.
Thank you.
I understand what you're getting at. So I believe that the business objectives always will drive what happens. You're right, though. I don't think that that's where the energy comes from. The difference is those business objectives have typically not been defined in terms of digital transformation, and I don't mean digital transformation as a technology. So in one of the things I talk about in phase 2 of that process is people and understanding how people are going to do things differently and derive value differently. That's where the energy comes from. And that's well before you determine what, technology on what hype cycle, wherever it is, gets done. Because with digital transformation, the funny thing is you look at that hype cycle, there are 10 different technologies that you could use to problem solve a specific thing you want to problem solve. But one of the disconnects now is that people are being asked to do things simply for the sake of technology and data. And that's not the energy you're talking about. But the ability of people to say, I can solve things that I never thought I could solve. I knew they were wrong, and I had ideas around how to solve them, but you're allowing me a level of creativity, and you're allowing me a level of problem solving and usefulness that maybe I didn't have before. That's, there's just certain things that motivate people, and that's one of them from a business perspective. But let me jump in, let these guys answer that as well.
Yeah, maybe I'll take that first. So a lot of what you were saying, Ken Berger, Owens Corning, I guess end user. For the last 5 years, we've been trying to tackle exactly with the energy and driving people and the change management. So what we did a very thorough effort early on, say about 3-4 years ago, is we went out to hundreds of our employees from hourly on the floor all the way up through maintenance, all the way up through plant leaders, and had a third party come in and basically interview with a set of questions. And it was pretty thorough, hour-plus interview on every person. Do you have the tools to do your job? If we were going to go to this state of productivity, do we have the automation, the training? And it naturally created this whole roadmap that if we gave the employees the tools they're asking, there's a step change there. If we gave the automation, to get the touches off the process, there's a step change there. So that naturally sort of fueled inside the company the need for that.
It was
And
that
we-
assessment process,
And that
right?
assessment, your organizational readiness step is huge. And we publicize that. And here's what, the employees from OC said that we need to do to be transformation. Now we're building on and executing on basically what they said. So their plan is coming to, and we're getting that enthusiasm back. Now we have the whole change management and the training and everything as systems automate, but that was how we tackled it early on, I think, to what you were saying.
Armando, Mike, and
Yeah. Sir,
Go ahead.
look, Mike Dedzik, ArcelorMittal Dofasco. Let me just also a little different perspective from the steel industry there. So in the last 3 years, I've been very fortunate. I've done over 40 technical awareness presentations across the company to various people in that, and not giving them anything that was like scary. It's just, hey, here's what's coming up. Here's some new technologies. Here's what others are doing there. And just over the last couple of years, you're seeing some of these champions out there. They're saying, geez, I got a problem that I've been struggling with for a while there. Geez, there's a tool that I heard about that Mike said something about. Maybe I can learn a little bit about it. And we're seeing all these new champions out there, these power users that have started to embrace it. So now that we've done some of this organizational assessment, these strategies, roadmaps, we've got a series of champions already out there that are just really excited and interested. So that really helps some of that energy side that we've seen within our organization to move to the next step there.
Armando. And
Yes, Armando Lara, Lionel Basel. So I really like your comment in one sense. I agree that, in my view, the energy will come from three places. The organizational readiness, number one, which is what you guys are talking about. To me, the other one is the vision of our leadership. You and I and the C-suite and everybody thinking ahead of what is the condition today and what are the possibilities for applying technology. But number three, in my view, is the actual technology of delivering on promises, but being able to do the things that our vendors and our technology developers are saying that we can do with these technologies. Because the longer we talk about them, the longer this transformation is going to delay, and the sooner we're going to reach failure as well. And we've seen it with a lot of technologies. Augmented reality, to me, is overdue, right? We've been talking about it for a long time. If we don't do things about it soon, that's going to be forgotten very quickly, right? Especially in today's business environment where we're trying to meet very strict business objectives. Your company, my company, is trying to meet very strict Wall Street requirements. We need to deliver today.
so Armando, to the group, to those points as well, are there any kind of rules of thumb for efficiencies? More, some of it maybe in a tactical level, but to be able to set expectations internally. Does anyone have any observations or rules of thumbs that you give?
I will go back to Mike's presentation and the entire white paper that's available as well. To me, the key, there's two keys. One is the connectivity between the C-suite strategy and the business problem. And number two is our focus on solving the business problem, not chasing technology for the sake of chasing technology, but actually going out there and solving the business problem, a business problem. To me, that's the primary rule of thumb.
I think I can echo that. And I think the other change within OC is, for every project we've been saying, there's productivity. And I think even now, the message is coming profitability. There's been a swing in terms, and I think that small swing, and then taking that all the way down and driving, our organization is not digital transformation or automation, we're advanced manufacturing. So I think it all couples together to bring whatever that looks like and change to the plant to drive the need for profitability there and the systems that go with that. And we've had some really good success stories, and we publicize that across the network. And now plants are asking for it. Bring it to me quick. And now it's, change control on our side because it's moving very fast, and we can't, execute as fast unless we expand. But it's really now a pull within our facilities based on that.
Mike, any
And I'll
thoughts?
just reiterate, I agree with everything there. It really comes down to show me the money. And we're showing them the money there. We're showing them real things, real applications, real sustainable. And now we're scaling up on some of them there that have really panned out for us there. So Then you get traction in some areas. Others are saying, well, why can't I? You know, I got problems that are somewhat similar there. So we're really trying to move in that direction there, and that's what they want to see. Solve their problems, really make some value, and let's not even worry. Whatever the technology was, just do it for me and help me out.
So to that point, maybe from the flip side, setting expectations, are there any observations, lessons learned about potential headwinds that come along that you'd like to share, or that how do you navigate past those internally as you begin your journeys? Mike, you want to start with that?
Well, as I said when I presented last year, some of the key challenges that we see here, and this is what I see our company, and I think Mike highlighted a lot of them already there, is three ones that I hear from technology leaders across all industry verticals is culture change management, which you talked a lot about here, skills and competencies that we need, we talked about here. And a lot of them will say, my plant doesn't at all look like one of these digital transformation plants here. I've got what I got, legacy, some modern. How do I make my plant look like this? And that whole integration piece there. So these are kind of the key headwinds I think all industry verticals are going to deal with there to some degree. It's going to be the senior leadership that's really going to help smooth through some of these real challenges to get those culture, get the investments needed for integration, get those investments needed for the skills and competencies there.
Okay.
And I think, Mike's presentation did a nice job of highlight the need for HR. And I heard that screen, and we learned that very early on from the change management, the training, the repositioning of employees as we upskill somebody from an operator to a process tech, from a process tech up. That's the big piece of the puzzle. I mean, we can solve automation, we can solve the controls, the technology. That's more of a money play. But it's the people side that really make you stumble if you don't do it right.
The one other element is one that Mike talked about, which was our ability to be able to challenge current philosophies, right? The current business model and that sort of thing. Well, the petrochemical industry it's actually done a very good job of becoming a very low-cost producer. Over the last several years, we've been able to streamline processes in a very aggressive way, and we've been very successful at doing that. Well, now coming back and saying, let's go out there and invest in something that may not be totally proven, it's quite a challenge, right? So going through the process, the multi-phase process that you talk about, at times could be difficult because it's hard to develop that business case without having seen the tangible results, right? So being able to challenge those old philosophies, I think it's also important. It could be a headwind if you're not able to navigate it.
I have one more question, and then to maybe ensure enough time for everyone, I'll give a thought if you have any questions, and maybe to Mike, but also for the team as well. How do you reconcile beginning a digital transformation process or expanding on it and future-proofing it? How do you kind of create the mold or at least a framework moving forward to have something that's scalable?
So I think Armando hit on it. So you want to understand that there's only so much you can understand. So you have to have philosophical ideas around what do you think your pathway wants to look like. Here's a good example around platforms. Do you want to take kind of a BIC lighter approach to capabilities that you could get off of a platform where it becomes very disposable? And if the vendor goes away or you decide to shift, it's not that big of a deal? Or do you want to go all in on something and really want to own those skills long term and you want to build toward that? So you're starting to lay out, philosophical ways of how you want to operate with some of this technology that you might have. And that, there's not a perfect way because you can't, it's the future. So you can only future-proof to a degree, but you can start to operate, you can start to define the principles by which you want to operate, and that will lead you down certain paths with other folks and make you shy away from others.
Any other comments?
I think if you balance out what we just talked about in terms of the philosophy of show me the money, right? A lot of the focus is going to be at first trying to solve today's problem. How do we apply the tool or the technology to be able to solve today's problem? Part of what we've done is that in some of the applications that we try to implement, we also do a general risk assessment, try to find out what are the different areas where we can apply this one tool that is being offered to us, right? So we'll go into the implementation with something that we know how to solve, that we believe we're going to be able to solve with the application, in the thinking that we might be able to apply it in other places. With new technology, once you put it in the proper hands, one thing that's going to happen as well is that you're going to see a lot of people coming up with new ways to apply that technology. And we've run into a lot of surprises, very pleasant surprises on how to apply the technology that we thought could only solve one or two problems. So I think in a way, yes, you trace the path, but there's also a bit of an entrepreneurial spirit that comes along with the implementation, and new things will come up as you deploy.
The only thing I'll comment is, and going back to Mike's presentation, that operational maturity there. If you have good C-suite support there, make sure that you're showing them how you're progressing here and that you are getting that operational maturity in all the key areas that are going to future-proof these technologies as they see the value, as they're providing, resources to these specific projects there. They're seeing that, yeah, we're moving in a direction, and if you need to course correct, you'll course correct.
And just to build on that, the only other thing I was thinking about as I was hearing the comments is pick your POCs wisely. As you pick the first one, make sure it's going to be scalable to your facilities, outside of that, because once you prove the home run or the win, and you can quickly scale that to another 20 plants, now all of a sudden the energy's behind you.
Great, thanks. Question?
Hello, this is John Cooley from Procter & Gamble. I was a little surprised in your presentation that you didn't highlight the need for a good data scientist to be on the team to fully flush out the needs and requirements of the modeling and its interaction with the real world. At least in my company, we don't really have any data scientists to speak of. So you're faced with bringing in a third-party data scientist who generally has zero domain expertise in your particular field. You go outside further to the suppliers and you pose your question to them. Of course, they all come back and say, yeah, we can do it. Just give me $100,000 and we'll build you a prototype. Can you comment on that?
Sure. So a couple things. I mentioned it pretty early on. I have an entire workshop around the organizational maturity that would tackle something like a data scientist, because those skill sets are something you allude to. You have to, as part of the assessment process, you would understand what do I look like people-wise in terms of what I need. And the thing about it is you can go down the road of addressing that gap multiple ways. And I think a lot of folks don't understand the multiple ways it could be solved. So yeah, you can, it gets into the idea of, do you want to go try to find and hire data scientists? It's a pretty competitive environment for them, but you may say, well, that's something that we absolutely critically must have. Some people, a lot of folks have data scientists, but they just don't have the Ferraris that the data scientists might need to problem solve. One of the things that you have to then do is use that as a stepping off point for understanding expectations around how you might fill that gap. So you say, if we can't get a data scientist in-house over the short term or whatever the project happens to be, and we want to outsource that, what are the expectations of that cost? But most importantly, what are the expectations of the resource requirements internally? Because you may find that, if I've got to have 10 of my engineers that are my top quality people that are high value and I've got to apply them to a project, the cost of having that data scientist resource and maybe even going and finding a subject matter expert that can bridge some of that context, it's not nearly as bad as I thought it was, because I can't take the amount of time with those 10 engineers and take them away and have them go through this. And that it's even compounds more when you think about scale. So, okay, if I solve the problem here, what did that look like? And now I've got to go solve it in these other instances here, here, and here, and here. Well, I got to replicate that whole process again. So it's really about, when you look at key skills like that, it's really about understanding, what's the runway for the problem solving, and what's my end vision for what I want to do, and how much is the cost of that, true cost of that, short term, midterm, long term. There's not a silver bullet. There really isn't. And you know, there's different ways you can say, well, I can look for companies that really emphasize drop and drag methods and tools, self-service. I'm not going to do certain types of data science, but that's okay because I can do a ton of great stuff I could never do before. So it's really about making some of those decisions and at least being aware of them so you can weigh them.
Well, thank you, Mike, Ken, and Armando. I'm sure they'll be available at the end of the session with any questions, and thank you very much for great insight.